This is Radio Out There, and I'm Barry Eaton. And a variety of subjects as Duncan Rhodes joins us once again. Topics like mobile phones. Are they a deep state global surveillance system? Yeah. Health effects of human exposure to UFOs and UAPs. And more mysteries of the Great Pyramid. That and a lot more, including a wonderful editorial with Duncan Rhodes, editor and publisher of Nexus magazine. Duncan, how are things with you?
Very good, thank you. Despite the state of the world, I seem to be having a good experience at the moment, so I'm going to pass it on, share the joy.
Well, you have passed it on with your editorial for the latest edition of Nexus magazine, volume 32, number 6. And let's talk about your editorial, because for a while now, we've all known, or most of us anyway, that we are in a period of transformation. And you talk about this in your editorial. We can't keep on going with this dreadful division and fear and control. But that's only the bit in the middle, isn't it? I love your editorial.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. A lot of people would say that the negativity, the fear, and the control give us help us to understand what we don't want, where we've been, and it gives us an idea of what we want to move away from for those who are thinking along those lines. I mean, like a lot of people out there, I'm in my early 60s when I sort of was exposed to the new way of thinking. I was in my early teens, and part of the package that came with positive thinking, vegetarianism, meditation, and opening the package of reincarnation, ancient civilizations, Eric von Däniken, Lobsang Rampa, part of that whole package, and the New Age movement, part of that whole package, including the Christian movement too, is the sort of unspoken prophecies, predictions, and agendas and awareness that we are moving towards the end of an old age and towards a new age. And generally speaking, the new age was one of peace, harmony, things like that. Quite a few people have written books and courses and made themselves very famous and rich on it. But it strikes a sympathetic chord. But human lives are what they are. You've got to survive, you've got to get along with people, and a lot of people push that back as a secondary issue and focus on getting on in society. And but when things get sort of grim, so to speak, in terms of the world's state geopolitically, geophysically, and things like that, I think it helps to have a sense of a good future. And I mean, even the ancient, Vedic, prophecies and predictions talk about coming out at the end of Kali Yuga with a huge sort of type of cosmic fire which purges all the evil and leaves only the good. In the editorial, I touch upon the growing number of people who are having near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, metaphysical, paranormal experiences. I sort of think they come in waves, and there was definitely a wave in the 50s and the 70s into the 80s, and there's another big wave now. Some people would say that COVID, whether you like it or not, has woken up a huge number of people, in some cases being forced into a lockdown for 2 weeks on their own. A lot of people went inward instead of just focusing on the outside.
So could that have been a catalyst for transformation, do you think?
Yeah. And again, I've written plenty of articles about the negative side of COVID. I mean, people are still dying to this day. There's been no recognition, there's been no sense of the people at the top presenting any accountability. We know why, because the people at the top have organised it. And I guess the awakening is more I mean, it's sort of funny because when I did Nexus, when I took over Nexus in the late 80s, I sort of thought it would just be a hobby. That there weren't a lot of people out there who sort of thought that, thought out of the box like I did and were, always skeptical of what the mainstream media were telling you. But since, I mean, in the 90s, X-Files came along and made Nexus a lot more acceptable. And I mean, Nexus is almost, I mean, we do stay ahead of the pack, actually. And there are articles in this issue which you won't find on the internet probably for a long time. So proud to say that Nexus holds its ground and we are still ahead of the pack and breaking articles which become on trend in sort of alternative circles 2 or 3 years later. And but getting back to the editorial, one of the, I mean, I mentioned totally the point of more and more people having more and more experiences, and I'm talking really straight people with a straight background, having profound experiences like flying along, and all of a sudden they hear a voice in their head, very clear, very articulate, very precise, very personal. They look around, no one else is talking. Trish McCarr was a great one. She talks to animals after being a dental assistant. She's in a room with a cat, and the cat talks to her, and she can hear everything clear as bell in her head. And she looks around for a person, and there's the cat. There seems to be a big wave of it since COVID. COVID definitely has sparked an awakening, and it's a two-edged sword because in and amongst the awakening from COVID is a fear and a dislike and a not wanting to embrace, I guess, the sheer scale. I mean, to appreciate the scale of those working against good free people. I mean, people now are aware that there's a small group at the top of a pyramid that basically control everything. The next layer down, the people that run the corporations, the banks, the media, the pharmaceutical companies, they're well-paid servants. And then you've got everyone at the bottom of the pyramid who are basically being socially engineered to attack each other, left versus right, male versus female, straight versus gay, racial division, black. I mean, it just goes on. And the thing is, all this division is being perpetuated from the top down. And people are waking up in it, but they use such inflammatory rhetoric. They use killings and horrible things just to make people really fired up. And so in amongst this growing awareness and recognition that there is a small group right at the top who are culling the planet, who are manipulating all the countries simultaneously in lockstep with new laws, laws which ban you able to criticize the government, to criticize aspects of the government, to criticize what other particular governments are doing. There's basically laws which are coming in simultaneously in a lot of Western countries. Australia is facing a restriction starting in December this year, 2025, about who can access the internet, proof of age, etc. And a lot of the naysayers and skeptics would say, well, it's all going to be voluntary, the acceptance of the digital ID, etc. But everyone sort of is now aware that voluntary is a bit of another lie coming down from the people at the top. Obviously, yeah, if it's I mean, you have to use your cell phone and download an app. So a lot of people are saying, well, let's just ditch our cell phones and not download the apps and, see how you go. Well, that can certainly work if you are already prepared or if you drop everything and start preparing now. And start preparing now means you need to look around you in your local area and identify who you trust, who you like, who thinks the same as you, and you need to start networking access to resources in the event of a future where you don't want to, participate in the new system. And I mean, I won't go into any detail because most of the listeners out there are aware, but the social ID, that's national digital ID, will give everybody a unique biometric ID. Now, on the good side,
like it or not.
Like it or not, but on the good side, there is a mass amount of ID theft, corruption, which is crippling countries, etc. And it could get rid of all of that national digital ID, which they're already saying is going to be a unique global ID. So all the national digital IDs are designed to work on a global system. On the positive side, it could be a good thing to have a global civilization that represents the good in people and is honest and not corrupt. But the downside is, I mean, the national digital ID is it's like fire. It's a good servant but a terrible master,
Mm.
and that's where we're at. So to resist it now, I mean, eventually what you'll see is, it's not compulsory to get your digital ID, but soon the banks, being private entities, will say, well, for whatever reasons, ID theft, scamming, and all the rest of it, you're not going to have a bank account with our facility, with
Unless,
our
yeah,
institution,
yeah,
unless you give us a digital ID. And
yeah.
then the telecommunications companies, so you won't be able to get on the internet. Eventually, if you don't have the national digital ID, you won't be able to have a driver's license, get electricity, be on the internet, access your banking,
Have a
which means
passport.
basically, if you're in a rural area, you should start looking at, veggies and who you can trust in your local area,
Yeah, yeah.
and be prepared to live without electricity or access to running water and services.
Mm.
In Australia, it's particularly interesting. Australia is one of the very high-tech countries, and we have a lot of government per population. So the number of public servants in Australia per head is very high. We've got council, state and federal governments. And the number of Australians directly employed by those three tiers is huge. Doctors, nurses, teachers, public servants in all three tiers. You've got businesses which rely on government tenders and government contracts to survive. And then you've got all the people who are getting pension, single mother pension, the disability pension, super, I mean, a whole raft of them. So if the governments of Australia, the three tiers of government, said no digital ID, you don't get payment, that's at least two-thirds of the country are going to be
Yeah,
cut off from their financial support
absolutely,
system.
absolutely.
And not a lot of countries are in that position, but Australia is. So
Yes, yeah, yeah.
there's an
Well, you've
awareness.
identified that in your editorial, and you wrap up by saying to navigate safely through the chaos ahead,
Mhm.
choose to focus on the good in people.
Yes, one of the
How
things I put
about
in the
this?
editorial was that the energy of fear, the
Mm,
energy of fear is what the controllers use to get away with what they do.
mm.
So
False evidence appearing real.
yes, and so the more fear you have about what they're doing, the stronger you're making them in many ways. So in the editorial, I've basically suggested that the real solutions for navigating your way through this new looming infrastructure change is to identify and focus and liaise with the people of a like mind in your immediate geographical area. Look at resource sharing and preparation, because there's a lot of people thinking about this. And already I know in Australia, a lot of properties are being purchased by small groups, small families, with the view to resource share and to make land available for people to camp on or put their small temporary house on or their RV on, with a view to get through what's in the future. The other thing is basically do examine why you are putting your fear into their hands. And I've said at the bottom of the editorial to really, really examine your fears and find out what beliefs are sustaining them and see
Yeah.
whether those beliefs are
Mm.
serving you or whether you're serving those.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean, fear is the glue and the power base of the people at the top.
At the
So
top.
by taking that away, you are energetically starving them. And I mean, I don't want to get woo-woo and esoteric, but even extraterrestrials have said to humans, the people who are giving you guys a hard time or are giving you life lessons are using your own fears against you. And
Mm.
it's a pretty good time now to recognize that
Yeah,
and
yeah.
to decide how you want to go.
All right, fair enough. Now, let's talk about some of the stories in the current edition, and because there are so many wonderful ones there, and we won't be able to go into in depth with every one because I'd like to talk about almost every story. But linking across, you talked about cell phones or mobile phones, as we call them in Australia, and there's a wonderful article by T.J. Coles on spy phones. And we know that smartphones can listen in, but he goes into pretty depth there of how they are impacting our life. So let's have a quick summary on that one.
Well, basically, what Tim's put in the article is not going to be new to a lot of people, but it's got all the receipts and references and
Mm.
sources for the hardcore information. I think most of the listeners and readers of Nexus out there are very much aware that cell phones are, again, they're a two-edged sword. They can be a good servant or a terrible master, and we're
Yeah,
moving towards recognition of the master stage of the cell phones. Um, I mean, apart from the radiation and all that side of it, the health effects, I mean, if George Orwell in 1984 said that in the future, we're not going to force people to, wear a shackle or wear a device which allows us to spy on them all the time. We're going to get those people to buy the thing and maintain it and update it and keep it with them 24/7. We're going to make them emotionally dependent on aspects of this device, which is technically your shackle in a society where you're enslaved, but you don't have prison walls around you. So it's the ultimate in self-enslavement where you are not so much addicted to it, but I mean people are using it for all sorts of
oh,
things, especially
everything.
young people,
I know.
without being aware that one day if they decide to resist or buck the system, or if these new rules and regulations about not being able to criticise the government and many other aspects come avalanching in beneath that, um, dissident conversations that you are having in a cafe with a friend and saying, "Oh, I don't like what the government's doing about this, and I don't like this, subculture that's being we have to cow down to because they're in favour and blah 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 blah." I mean, at the moment, that's all just recorded on your file by AI. And I would remind everybody that even if you're walking around with no cell phone thinking, Big Brother doesn't know what I'm doing, wrong. If you are walking down the street, every person you say hello to, their phone picks up your voice is sent via their phone microphone up to AI, and AI knows, oh, Mr. Rhodes is walking down the street and he's just said hello to Ian because Ian's phone's told us. When you're sitting in a cafe, um, you might be having lunch with a friend and his phone's sitting there, or even if you're having lunch with another conspiracy theorist friend and neither of you have your own phones there, every other phone in the cafe is hearing your voice. And AI at the end of the microphones know that you're and that cafe, they can even triangulate what table you're at using Bluetooth from the other phones in the cafe. So it's a 24/7, spying device. On top of that, your cell phones are taking literal photographs, infrared heat photographs every few seconds, depending on the make and the model, continuously. And those images are being sent back to AI headquarters. So it's filming and recording everything that's being said around you. There's a section in the article which I asked Tim to include, which was about Bluetooth low energy. And I
Mm.
can't believe how few conspiracy theorists even have heard about this. We all know Bluetooth in the cell phone, it has an active range of 50 feet if you don't have too many walls. You can have a wireless keyboard. It connects to your computer using Bluetooth. You've got earbuds, headphones, speakers. Bluetooth's used to make a wireless, little infrastructure for your sound and your videos, etc. But when COVID started and they did the contact tracing, the telecommunication companies, first Apple and then later Android, activated in everyone's cell phone a thing called Bluetooth Low Energy Network.
Mm.
BLE is what you would look up online. And I was astonished because this was already in everyone's phones. They didn't get a little message saying, oh, by the way, we've activated Bluetooth Low Energy Network on your phone. They just did it.
They just did it. Mm.
And what's fascinating is all the spy agencies were using it for contact tracing. So they launched it and they gave it a test run with COVID on contact tracing. Bluetooth Low Energy Network means even if you turn your phone off, when you turn it back on, it's still recording stuff in the background and it's storing it on the phone, and then as soon as you turn the phone back on, it looks for another phone within a mile and a half away and sends it back up the wire. My concerns about Bluetooth Low Energy Network is if, for example, the powers that be crashed the global internet, they brought it down just to raise the fear up so that the herd's much more easier to corral into, laws and regulations and things that they want. And turning off the internet for 2 or 3 days would freak out a lot of people. But your cell phone is still supplying the military industrial complex, etc., the powers that be, with a parallel internet via Bluetooth low energy network. So your phones are connected to each other around the world. It's a type of mesh network. So if the internet came down for the public, the powers that be behind the scenes have got their own secure, almost unhackable internet that they can still use to control and instigate what they want. And we haven't put this in the article, but there's a growing number of researchers out there, including a couple of whistleblowers from the inside, who are basically saying that since COVID, most human bodies have become nodes on the internet. Like, we'll probably have to put this in a future article, but I don't know whether you know, but it was revealed 10, 20 years ago that inside your DNA, you can put terabytes of data just inside one molecule of DNA. And we've got trillions of molecules. So, given the fact that there's more and more data being generated all the time by people using the mobile phone, and there are definitely physical places being constructed around the planet to house that data, at some point there's got to be an overflow. And I would say without wanting to generate fear, many human bodies are already nodes on the internet. It's storing data and we're transmitting it. And your cell phone is an integral part of that mesh network. So, so I would say that the injections that happened in 2021 helped to prime it for most of us. And it's anyone's guess whether the rest of us were shed upon and we're now walking nodes in the network. And technically, you probably wouldn't ever know it physically if this was going on. But we are in uncharted territory when it comes to technology of surveillance and control. The only thing I haven't mentioned here, which I'm not sure is in this article or an upcoming one, is the ability of your cell phone to detect your thinking, so that's your thoughts, mental, and also to detect your emotions. Yes.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I can tell you right now, I've had umpteen people over the last 5 years tell me that, I've said these words and all of a sudden my YouTube feed or my Facebook feed or whatever reflected what I was talking about. And I'm saying, well, that's 10 years old. What gets me is when people are thinking about something strongly and then the ads for that appear on your news feed or on your Facebook thing. And that's a real thing. And I've got one example myself. 6 months ago, one of the toilet seats in our spare bathroom was just getting so wonky, and I thought to myself, I've got to fix this toilet seat. I've got to buy a new toilet seat, and I've got to fix this toilet seat.
So you didn't talk to yourself, you just thought that.
I didn't say it out loud, didn't say it to anybody in the house. I just thought it, didn't look it up online, and within a few hours, up comes a YouTube video on how to fix a toilet seat. What are the chances of that? And I've had umpteen people email me examples of something. I mean, look, for a lot of things, what you talk about, what you think about are on the fringe of what you are doing anyway. But the toilet seat one is completely out of left field, from everything I do.
And you hadn't talked about that with your wife beforehand?
No talking. It was in my head, and it was on the same within a few hours of me thinking it. And I was really thinking about it. I'm thinking, will I go to the farm barn, or will I go to Bunnings, or what am I going to do? Will I get a whole new toilet seat? Because
that's scary.
Well, it was revealed at a Nexus conference. Gordon Duff, who was a speaker at the conference, on the grounds that he's CIA, or he didn't even say he was ex-CIA. As far as I know, he still is CIA. Nice guy. But he mentioned in his talk about how, and he said, this was 2014, 2013, he was speaking at the Nexus conference. He said, oh, by the way, everyone's cell phone out there is not only able to listen to your thoughts and detect your feelings, but it is two-way. It can put thought suggestions into your brain, and it can suggest feelings into your brain. And he went into a bit of a dialogue about the technology and the patents of the technology being held in Scandinavian companies. And the audience was all like shocked. That was 10 years ago,
More than
he
that,
was
yeah.
saying. And he says it's not even a huge secret.
Yeah.
He said, but the public aren't aware of it, and no one's really going to go out there and be able to prove it without violating. I mean, you just
Mm.
wouldn't have the technology to be able to dive in and take a phone apart and be able to prove it. But
Mm.
yeah, that's exactly what he was saying.
Well, that's incredible. All right, look, let's move on now because that is an article that everybody needs to read. But let's move on to health side of things here. And a lot of people have contact. I was surprised how many people have contact with UAPs or UFOs as they used to be known. But the health impact there, fascinating story.
Yes. This article is an extract from a big study presented and put into the public domain by, the Unhidden Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And the article focuses on, I guess, the stress and negative effects of coming into contact with UFOs. And it draws upon some cases and does some research on it. It's more to do with not so much any damage caused by the occupants of UFOs, it's the proximity. And a lot of people are aware that in the early days of UFO encounters, all electricity would stop running in cars and houses.
Mm.
And a lot of people, if they were on the outside edges or near a UFO, they would have rashes, hair loss, get sick. Some people died. There's no doubt about it that some of the UFOs visiting Earth especially the 50s, 60s, and 70s, being in their proximity could cause all sorts of physical, emotional, and psychological grief. The article focuses more on the physical side of
It does, yeah.
but definitely measures the psychological and emotional side because, I mean, for a lot of people, they couldn't really talk about it or risk being put in an asylum, losing their jobs, ostracized from their community, kicked out of the church. So for a lot of people, they internalized unusual experiences. Now, I just want to say before I get into the rest of the article, I just want to say that there have been studies done, particularly by the organisation co-founded by the astronaut Edgar Mitchell, the organisation FREE. They put out a huge international multilingual research survey involving basically aimed at people who'd had more than just seeing a UFO in the sky. They'd actually had interaction with its occupants and had conscious memory of it. And you've got to recognise that overwhelmingly the people who have interaction with the occupants and come back and talk about it, they are positive. In fact, you can go and read old UFO paperback books and old newsletters from the UFO organisations from across America, Europe, Eastern Europe, and Britain. And overwhelmingly, the people who have been consciously taken aboard a UFO and taken for a bit of a joyride around the planet or the solar system, by and by, the majority of them are positive, and there are scores of examples that where the humanoid occupants have said to the Earth person, "Oh, I can see that you've got a type of curvature of your spine causing you grief and difficulty. Would you like us to correct it? It'll only take a minute." They said to one woman, "Oh, we can see that you are not able to conceive because of the way your eggs are created in your body is faulty. We can fix it." And I mean, for example, that woman, she went on to have babies, and she was told by her doctors and all the experts, "No way will you ever have a baby." And she went on to have babies. The guy with the spine corrected. I mean, the number of people who've had a positive health experience after their interaction with the occupants
So it's not all negative then.
is very high. But the cases that are where there's been a bad side effect are generally where the human has been exposed to the proximity of the craft, but haven't necessarily been aboard. So, I mean, it sort of suggests to me there's lots of different visitors using lots of variants of technology, and some are still learning the effects of it. as are we. So this article by the Unhidden Foundation, I've put it into the public domain because I want people's awareness of it, but I sort of suspect that it's feeding into the beginning of the narrative that UAP, UFOs, ETs are a possible threat to not only US national security but to mankind's well-being. And if you're going to present the hostile ET scenario in the near future, you've got to be normalizing the subject by now, which they are, and then you've got to start nibbling at the edges with little campaigns which generate fear and doubt about rushing up to them. And I'm not saying Unhidden Foundation is consciously involved in this, but given the fact that you could pick hundreds of positive cases and outcomes compared with a few dozen negative ones, it's interesting that the negative encounters have been covered and presented. And the Unhidden Foundation works closely with the SOL Foundation, which basically Sol Foundation, SOL.
SOL.
SOL, yeah. Anyone in the UFO research and disclosure movement knows who the SOL Foundation is. That's S for Sierra, O for Oscar, L for Lima.
Mm-hmm.
Go to their website, you'll see lots of impressive names, but there is so much CIA and people with, I would say, dubious backgrounds. And I mean, it just says to me the Sol Foundation's design is to normalize awareness of UFOs and to steer it towards the idea that they are a threat to US national security and global security. I mean, if I was an evil genius running the planet, it's exactly what I'd do. That's very credible. Any media organisation, government committee who looks at the Sol Foundation are going to come away instantly impressed with the credentials and the integrity and the authenticity of the people running the foundation and their, how they operate. They are designed to be a high-level representational body of the UFO field to government, media, and science. Up at the top level, and literally they've got top people in there. I'm not saying all the people on their main website are of malintent. I mean, obviously, it's best to recruit people who already believe in a certain ideology or way of thinking. But I would caution everybody: sit on the fence about UFOs. You're going to see a lot more normalization, and I predict you'll see a lot more focus on the potential negative sides of interacting with UFOs. I mean, what they really want is they want to scare the bejesus out of humans with a false flag alien attack and use that to create a global government. It's the oldest trick in the book. Make out that you're under attack, everyone will rally around the leader. And if the United Nations said, "Oh, look, we're being approached by an alien spacecraft. They're not returning our hails, and we think there could be, trouble." We formed a global government response thing. Boom, boom, boom. If you blew up a city or two yourself and said it was the aliens, the fear that is being spread would be used against you and could bring in a new infrastructure.
For sure.
I'm not saying this article is the beginning of it, but I put it out there to be aware, for people to be aware that there is two sides of the coin. And because I'm not saying they're all friendly, just like humans, you've got nice ones and your nasty ones. And I'm sure some of the visitors out there are very attracted to the nasty humans who are very much in positions of control and power.
Would not be surprised.
So watch this space.
Talking about watching this space, there's the first of three fantastic articles about Egypt and Tony Bushby. Now, there's so much stuff coming out about Egypt on Facebook. Look at a whole lot of sites, seeing all of the revelations that are coming out. But Tony Bushby, who sort of just reappeared, hadn't been around for a while, now talks about the Great Pyramid being maybe 12,500 years old, and some fascinating stuff there, Duncan.
Well, indeed. I mean, it's no secret to anybody who's into pyramid research that it's 10 or 12,000 or 10,000 BC, 12,000 years old. But what this article does include is, stuff I've never heard of about the Great Pyramid. Entranceways, etchings on the outside on the white marble slabs. And Tony Bushby has made a big name for himself over the decades for physically going to places where archives and manuscripts are stored, in old churches, museums. I think he got access to some parts of the Vatican at one point. And he's very famous for over the last 20 years, totally casting dispersions and doubt on the main narratives that underwrite Christianity as we know it. And we've put some of his articles in the magazine, and people were equally amazed and astounded as they were by the work of Lawrence Gardner, who was challenging the bloodline theory, or outlining the bloodline theory. And as you said, Tony Bushby been quiet for a number of years, and lo and behold,
a long time.
Yeah, well, yeah, but lo and behold, out of the blue, he sends me an email and says, "I've got all these articles about ancient Egypt, pyramids, etc., and went through a bit of a précis in each one, and said, 'Would you be interested?' I'm reading through it, I'm going, 'Yes, please.'"
Interested.
And now he sent over three of them, and I read all three parts, and I'm like sitting here going, "Wow." I mean, I don't want to brag, but it takes a bit to blow my mind, right? After 40 years, 30 years of doing what I do. And I've read a lot of books on the pyramids, watched a lot of videos, and I've got to say, get off Facebook. Don't use Facebook for any factual information. There is so much AI, clickbait, rubbish and lies on Facebook about everything you can possibly imagine. Do not ever use Facebook as a source of information. Only use it for connecting to your grandparents, your grandkids, and your brothers and sisters. The rest of it is absolutely useless. Go to Nexus newsfeed or read Nexus magazine. I'm appalled at what I see out there. I'm appalled by what people believe. But anyway, getting back to this. So this article and the articles to come, a lot of what Tony has accessed is ancient Arabic information sources. And I mean, maybe if I lived in an Arabic culture, I'd be aware of some of this, but obviously the crossover of information hasn't been so deep and broad as I would have thought from ancient Arabic sources and writings into the West. And I've found, to my amazement, over the last 5 years, heaps of stuff in Russia and Asia has starting to become a bit more known in the West, thanks to the efforts of only one or two people who straddle both cultures and both languages and have active interests in it. Paul Stonehill is particularly high in my regard for his access to Russian paranormal, cryptozoology, UFO stuff, ancient civilizations. He absolutely specializes in it with decades of work. And he has been sent lots of stuff. And again, with the Arabic cultures, I mean, the Arabic cultures were out there. I mean, they were very advanced scientifically, architecturally, for a long time, and had vast libraries and history. They traveled, they documented, but so little of our Western culture takes any of the Arabic sources of this into account. But Tony's got into it and accessed it. So we have a lot of information here about the materials that covered the Great Pyramid and the inscriptions that were on them, and different people who visited the Great Pyramid and their interpretations about what was on them. Other tunnel entrances to the Great Pyramid from other side of the Nile. People who went into, I guess, the secret passages and things surrounding underneath the Great Pyramid. There's a lot of talk about automatons, which we would call robots. So again, we're getting back to some more references to the idea that 10,000 years ago, some culture had working robots. I mean, I wouldn't know if they're AI robots, but there's... I mean, I'm talking humanoid people that walk around and have got a lot of skills, and by the sound of it, they were a lot more advanced than even the AI robots we've got.
Right. But I also like the references Tony gives to historians like Herodotus.
Yes.
From where came the aptitude for this amazing thing? Then another Greek philosopher says it looked like it was lowered down from heaven, untouched by human hands.
I mean, I'm just gobsmacked. Part two and part three, I'm just going to have to run because there's just so much stuff in them that I don't think most of the public have even heard about before. I mean, we've all heard of Herodotus and Strabo and their travels, they're Greek historians, etc. But I wasn't aware of some of their comments by Herodotus about the Great Pyramid. So kudos to
Mm.
Tony for digging out some of these details. And we've got a couple of photos to back it up. And the photo was, I was surprised he was able to get any photo. And it came out clear enough too. So yeah, there's a fair bit of writing. So when you look at the Great Pyramid article in the latest issue of Nexus, don't think, oh, I know everything about the Great Pyramid there is to know. No, you need to read this because it is quite it's quite
Riveting.
some
I
stuff
found it
in there.
riveting, actually.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
I mean, I was riveted. I mean, for me, I mean, yeah, it takes a lot for me to be riveted by an article I'm putting together for the magazine. Usually, I'm
Mm.
sort of aware of the contents and I'm steering it and trying to package it so that it's going to be understood and accepted by the readers. But yeah, I'm sort of reading this article and thinking, this is crazy. This is incredible.
Mm.
And I mean, as much as I can validate, it's there. But Tony is one of those people where I found anything that I thought was you know, possibly wrong. When I go and check where I can, no, he's right. So, I mean, that's the great part about my job. I learn as I go along by challenging and fact checking anything that I
Mm.
didn't know before. I check to see whether it's
See what happened, yeah.
there's truth behind it, and there is. So watch this space. There's more to come
That's right.
about it,
But
and
now
it's an interesting time.
you and I have both visited and been inside the Great Pyramid,
Mm,
done it a couple of times,
yeah,
and we've looked at various other things. But there's also other information coming out about um, the other pyramids at Saqqara, for instance.
yeah.
Joseph's pyramid there. There's more coming out about that now. More discoveries being made. So you have to wonder whether or not there has been a cover-up, and Tony talks about that. Has there been a
Oh, yeah.
cover-up of keeping information away from the world by people?
Well, the Vatican, well, the
I
way.
won't mention the name Zahir Was or anybody like that.
Yeah,
That would
no,
be
no,
terrible.
no. I mean,
No, no.
he's only small fry. He does the behest of the internationalists.
Yeah.
I mean, Egypt is basically uh, joint controlled by the USA and Israel at the top, much to the consternation of the people at the bottom. But the leadership's pretty much installed by America and run by America. Egypt buys a lot of American. Anyway, I won't go into the
No, no,
geopolitics
no. Mm.
of it, but the Roman Catholic Church would have been very instrumental in making sure glory to ancient civilizations for creating the Great Pyramid. It sort of underwrites the glory and power of Jesus Christ and Mother Mary and God and the Church. And they're pretty ruthless in suppressing or destroying or hiding information which could
Mm.
undermine the power of the Catholic Church. And thinking that the Great Pyramid was made by an ancient civilization with incredible technology and powers
Or
undermines the
an alien
credibility and power of the
civilization.
Catholic Church. So they've
Mm.
been very instrumental in making sure that scholars and academics for hundreds of years haven't given it much more than cursory mystery
Yeah.
stuff. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, there's vested interest in keeping narratives suppressed once you're in control. But like you say, there is a growing awareness and fascination from the general public in this.
Mm-hmm.
TV shows, Graham Hancock's got a whole
Graham
resurgence
Hancock's
on
wonderful,
TV.
yeah. Mm.
And to his credit, he's absolutely showing mainstream archaeology for the corrupt fraud that it's maintaining. I mean, for a long time, for hundreds of years, archaeologists have been used at the very top, and their institutions have been used to cover up findings from all around the world, which would totally destroy not just the
Mm.
theory of evolution, but the church point of view of
Yeah.
creation as well. So you've got two big factions on the planet. You've got the science who believes in evolution, and you've got the religious Abrahamic religions who don't really want the public to be aware of this. On the other hand, technology like LiDAR, when the general public send up a drone with LiDAR on it and
Yeah,
they
that
scan
was
areas of forests and jungles, I mean, they are finding
amazing.
lost cities,
Amazing.
empires.
Yeah.
I mean, they've LiDAR scanned around Angkor Wat, and they're basically saying it must have been millions of people
Enormous.
living in a massive city
Mm.
with suburbs. They cannot believe the intricacy of the water design system, how sewage. I mean, they're just looking at it going, this is technology way more advanced than we've even got to this day. and they're sort of saying, well, we think they did it 800 years ago, but the people doing the LiDAR scan and looking at the rocks are saying these have got the same styles of what we're saying is 12,000 years old. So there's massive rethinking and revising of our history narrative. And I have a feeling, as you say, you and I have both been in the Great Pyramid. And once you've been in there and you look around you, you realize there is no way the Great Pyramid was made for humans to walk around inside. So being a it's a machine. It is a massive machine. And obviously, it's designed to receive some form of energy from the cosmos and then to activate. So it would not surprise me within our lifetimes that some alignment or star or the sun or something happens and the pyramid literally wakes up. Things start moving around in there, chambers start opening, lights start shooting up into the sky. And possibly and the same thing happened to other particular pyramids around the planet. Maybe one's in China, South America, maybe one's under the ocean.
Who knows?
But
you
you and
I could talk about this for eons, but unfortunately time has beaten us, and we can continue this, though, in the next edition of Nexus, Part 2 of the Tony Bushby one.
All right, you've talked me into it.
I should hope so. Thanks.
I really wanted to talk about the memories of Earth before the moon.
I know. Well, we've run out of time.
I know. All
right.
It's me. It's my fault. I get carried away. And
people go on and read the magazine. There's a wonderful story there about that. All right, Duncan, good to talk to you.
Always a pleasure. I always enjoy it, even if I do talk too much.
Well, talking about Big Brother listening in every time we use a mobile phone, or even when we're not using it. That's it for this week. Thanks for your company, and Duncan Rhodes will be back for the next edition of Nexus Magazine.